Shalom Aleichem Rabotai, Shabbat Tov and Gutavach. Mishnah Yomi continues in the 15th parak of Shabbos at Mishnah Gimel. Mikoplin et hakelim. You can fold up your clothing. Afilu arba v'chamish bamim. Even 4 or 5 times. Apparently they would fold their clothing quite small to, we're going to see. As the Bartanura explains that apparently it makes it look nicer, fresher, like to have the right creases or to have it flattened out. And so the Bartanura actually explains the stipulations that the Gemara gives on this halacha, that it's only when you're going to wear the same piece of clothing again, bo bayom, on Shabbos itself, and it's only with one person, not with 2 people doing it, because that is nire kimetoknin. It looks like they are fixing it up, making it, nicely pressed and folded and creased or whatever it is to look nice. And they also said with one person, it's only allowed with new clothing that is stiffer. It's more stiff when it's fresh and new. It hasn't been worn and softened up yet. And so it doesn't wrinkle very quickly. It's still new, but with old clothing, no, because folding it up is going to make it nice. And the Bartanura adds from the Gemara that it's only with white clothing, not colored clothing, because this folding process is going to make them really nice, be like metakin them. And even with white one, only when he doesn't have other clothing. So if he has other clothing that's already nice and fresh, that he can wear on Shabbos, it would be usher to fold it. So that's about folding. Now get back to the Mishnah. Umatzin et hamitot. You can make your beds, prepare your beds, spread them out, unfold them if they're folded into the wall. Milele Shabbat, the Shabbat. From Friday evening, when you're done sleeping, to sleep again on Shabbat itself, avolo mi Shabbat lemotze Shabbat. But you can't make your bed on Shabbat as a preparation to sleep there when Shabbat is over. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, mekaplin et kelim umatzian et mitot miyom kippurim l'Shabbat. He says that if it's Yom Kippur and it's Erev Shabbos, so Yom Kippur is on a Friday, then you could fold up your garments that you're going to use on Shabbat and make your beds for Shabbat on Yom Kippur, Erev Shabbos. And he adds, V'chelve Shabbat, craving b'Yom Kippurim, and the chelev from the karbanot, from the sacrificial offerings in the temple, that the chelev was often consumed the night following karbanot. So by karbanot, by sacrifice, it's interesting that they were brought during the day, but some of the limbs and fats that are not consumed during the day can be consumed the following night. So what Rabbi Yishmael is saying is that when Yom Kippur follows Shabbat, then the chelev of the sacrificial offerings brought on Shabbat could be consumed on Yom Kippur. And the Bartanura explains because Shabbat has a more severe punishment than Yom Kippur does. So back to the Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva Omer, he says, Lo shel Shabbat craving b'Yom Kippurin, v'lo shel Yom Kippurim craving b'Shabbat. He says you can't offer up the limbs or the fats from the karbanot of Yom Kippur on Shabbat, or vice versa, because they have an equal isser, even though the punishment's different. Rabbi Akiva says the isser is equal, so you can't say one is doche another, or there's an allowance to prepare from one to the other. And the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, according to the Bartanura. Great. On to chapter 16. Kol kitvei kodesh matzili notan mipnei adeleka. Any holy writings, you may rescue them from a fire. The Mishnah will explain soon to where you're rescuing them. Bein shekorin behen, bein she'ein korin behen. But first, we're going to keep explaining which writings we're saving. So whether we read from them or we don't read from them. So Bartanura explains even, in any Tanakh, as we're going to find out, Afal pi sheketuvin b'kol lashon, even though they're written in any language, ta'unin geniza. They do need geniza. So even if they're not written in Ktav Ashurit, and they're like a Sefer Torah is, they still need geniza if they are Kitvei Kodesh. And consult your local halachic authority for the issue of shemos. Sometimes the kids bring home coloring sheets, Erev Shabbos, from school, and there's psukim on the bottom of those coloring sheets. So even though the kids are coloring it, there could be a pasuk on the bottom, so it might be shemos, it might need geniza. So it's consult your local authorities. Mishnah continues, Mipnei ma ein korin behen, and why do you not read in these certain books that we don't read in? Mipnei bittul beis midrash, because it will be it will cause neglect of the lecture in the study hall. So Bartner explains from the Gemara that when someone starts reading Nevi'im and Ketuvim has some pretty exciting stories, and a person get carried away and they just sit there reading his Tanakh all day. Halavai, we should do that for using our time. But on Shabbat, they had everyone come to the Beit Midrash for the drasha, for the Daf Yomi or the rabbi's drasha, or shiurim and halacha and things like this. So if somebody is at home reading his Ketuvim, he can get carried away and he's going to miss the drasha, and we do not want people missing the drasha. And Chazal say in other places that it was common for people who were working, they were working so much during the week that they barely had any time to learn, except for on Shabbat. So it's very important for them to learn. For us too, we have more time to learn on Shabbat. Very important not to neglect the Beit Medrash even on Shabbat. Good. The Mishnah continues, Matzilin tika sefer ima sefer. You can save the case of the scroll, like the outer case with the garment we have on the Sefer Torah, with the sefer. The tika tefillin ima tefillin. And the bag for the tefillin with tefillin, afal pi sheyesh b'tochan ma'ut, even though someone might have some coins in his tefillin case, for tzedakah, because he brings his tefillin to Beis Knesset, gives tzedakah there. Good. Lahechan matzilin tan, and to where can you save these things? Lemavui, into the alley, she'ena mefulash, that is not an open alley. Ben B'Teira Omer afla mefulash, even to an open alley. So to explain what's going on here is it was very common for an alley, like a little dead-end street, to have multiple chatzerot, multiple courtyards opening. Now, if there's a fire, and there's usually one or two houses per courtyard, if there's a fire in one of these courtyards, then they would take everything out of that courtyard and into the mavui, the alley, and perhaps then into another courtyard. Now, a mavui could be eno mefulash, means they put up sort of like a board at the entrance as like a quasi gateway. It's not really a gateway. It's not closed, but it's like quasi closed. So they would allow you to save the items into there. Now, obviously, we're going to see later if there's a danger to life or limb, they could even put out the fire. But if we're talking about a case where there's no danger, they just want to take everything out so it does not get burned up. Shkoyach Rabosai, Shvotov.